And we'll get right started right now as Israel and Iran trade fire for the sixth straight day. President Trump is calling for Iran's, quote, unconditional surrender. He made the comment in a Truth Social post yesterday, shortly after meeting with the National Security Council in the Situation Room. The president claimed the U.S. knows exactly where Iran's supreme leader is hiding, writing, quote, he is an easy target. We are not going to take him out, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Videos posted on social media show huge lines of bumper-to-bumper traffic as people stream out of the Iranian capital this week. There was also gridlock at gas stations. Multiple current and former administration officials tell NBC News the president is now considering a variety of options, including launching a possible strike on Iran. This comes as Israel wants the United States to drop its largest bunker-busting bomb on a nuclear site that's deep underground. A White House official tells NBC News the president has spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. No other details were provided so far. It all comes as Israel's military says it struck a centrifuge production site in Tehran, along with several weapons manufacturing facilities, part of the ongoing exchange of fire between Israel and Iran. Missiles continued to be intercepted over Tel Aviv by Israel's Iron Dome defense system overnight. The civilian death toll in Israel now stands at 24, according to officials there. In Iran, strikes continued throughout the day and into the night, with a large explosion reported just before dawn today. State media says at least 224 people have been killed since last Friday. And as the two sides exchange fire, there are signs Iran is scaling back its attacks on Israel. The New York Times reports it could be part strategy, part necessity. While Israel's strikes have diminished Iran's ability to hit back, the Islamic Republic may also be making a deliberate shift toward lower intensity attacks sustained over a longer period. At the same time, Israel is reportedly running low on a key piece of weaponry that intercepts long-range ballistic missiles. A U.S. official says the Pentagon has been aware of the capacity problems for months. It raises concerns about Israel's ability to shield its population centers if the conflict isn't resolved soon.
David,
that brings us all up to date.
Yeah, thank you for that. And David Ignatius, I'm curious about your latest reporting, and obviously the one word, two-letter word that everybody focused on yesterday for good reason was the word we. When Donald Trump talked about we have control over the skies of Iran, over Tehran. What's your latest reporting? Is the president moving towards bringing America into this war with Israel against Iran?
Joe, I think from the language coming out of the White House, what we know about the meetings that are taking place, there's no question that President Trump is on the edge of making what would be a very consequential decision to use U.S. military force in this conflict. This is not an in-and-out, a one-and-done kind of intervention. To join the war at this late date really does mean you're going to be involved in trying to obliterate the essence of rule by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and in a sense share responsibility for what comes after. From the beginning of this, Joe, there has been concern among U.S. officials that Israel can start a war against Iran, but it can't finish it without U.S. help. That's something that bothered President Trump back in February when Prime Minister Netanyahu first began proposing the kinds of attacks that we've seen beginning last Friday. And Trump was wary of being drawn into something that he wasn't sure was required. He thought that maybe diplomacy could accomplish the same. But this issue, that in the end there would be this deep, deep underground Iranian facility at Fordo, south of Tehran, that could only be taken out, where the Iranians keep many of their most sophisticated centrifuges, could only be taken out by a U.S. weapon, the so-called massive ordnance
Penetrator.
That would penetrator would require American intervention, and we're now on the edge of that. As I said at the beginning, Trump seems still uncertain what he wants to do, how to make up his mind. He should be uncertain. It's a big choice, one of the most consequential of his presidency.
Right. Well, and you know, Jonathan Lemire, you obviously been reporting out of the White House over the past 24 hours about some of the divides inside Trump's own coalition. And part of the reason there's a divide inside of Donald Trump's own coalition is there's been a divide, it seems, internally with Donald Trump over the past 20 years. He's been talking for 20 years about how George W. Bush made a mistake going into Iraq. It's one of the things he constantly talked about on the campaign trail. And if somebody thinks that attacking Iraq and then dealing with the aftermath is difficult, try Iran. And that's, I mean, my God, that's not stating anything but the facts. I mean, what an absolute complicated mess that would be. Not just humanitarian, but strategic. The warnings we've heard for years about the possibility of terrorism spawning off of that. I'm curious, where is Donald Trump right now, and how does this line up with what he's been saying about the United States getting involved in Middle Eastern wars over the past 20 years, and how he's always thought those wars were mistakes?
Yeah, it feels like so long ago, but one of the animating principles of his 2015-2016 campaign was to be sharply critical of these forever wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, and say he would not do the same, that he did not want further American intervention in the Middle East because of how inevitably messy and prolonged it would be. He now seems to be on the brink of doing just that. And right now, from people I've talked to inside the building and just outside close Trump allies, all the signs, all the momentum is pointing one way, which is the U.S. getting involved fully. But that has not happened yet. And we know that during President Trump's first term, both two separate times in 2019 and 2020, he was on the brink of real escalation of using U.S. forces, U.S. weaponry on Iran, and both times held back. So there is a chance here he could again. This could just be a negotiating tactic. We know, as of a week ago, that was his hope, to bluster, to use the threat of American force to get Iran back to the negotiating table. He does seem, though, the events of the last week or so being pushed along by Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has convinced him that Iran is close to a weapon. Now, I will say, U.S. intelligence does not agree with that assessment. They do not believe that Iran is on the brink of that. And Jeremy Bash, that is where we are right now. And because if President Trump gives the go-ahead, if they do this, my understanding is to use these bunker-busting bombs, it's not just a B-2. It's not just an American bomb. It would need to be an American aircraft and an American pilot needed to deliver them, which would mean this would be an American strike. We'd be all in. Walk us through this calculation.
So for the last 10 years or so, Jonathan, the U.S. and Israel have been discussing how to destroy, dismantle, degrade the underground enrichment facility at Fordo, outside of the city of Qom. This is a deep, buried underground facility with cascades spinning centrifuges that are enriching uranium, and that can be enriched to what the IAEA said last week was 60%, which is approaching bomb-grade fuel. Now, that cascade hall is too small to power a civilian energy program for the Iranian people. It is really a facility that's kind of tailor-made for a weapons program. And the U.S. has had its eye on that facility for many years. We've engaged in several operations, including sabotage operations, to go after it. But, of course, that facility still exists. And you're right, Jonathan, that the only way to access it would be through a B-2 stealth Spirit bomber, which is based out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. The pilots would have to fly a round-trip mission all the way there, gaining aerial refueling and carrying that 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrator. There's really no scenario in which we would give the plane to another country or let other countries' pilots fly it. And so this is kind of squarely the president's call. I would just say, Jonathan, on the intelligence, yes, you're right that U.S. intelligence has said we do not believe that Iran is close. I think you said that we're close or on the brink of having a weapon. But let's just be precise. They suspended a weaponization program, but we have seen them enriching to higher levels necessary than civilian fuel. We've seen the program dispersed. We've seen an extensive Iranian nuclear program all over the country. And if you kind of take a big step back and say, look, Israel destroyed Osirak, the Iraqi reactor, in 1981. It destroyed Al-Kabar, the Syrian reactor, in 2007. In a post-October 7th world, Israel and any country really can't kind of wait for threats to gather and kind of wait till we're on the brink of having a nuclear weapon. This defensive preemptive action by Israel does make logical sense. The question really is, how much will the United States become involved?